After a very busy morning, I'm going to start. Next to me is Dr. Namsa Masuku, the Commissioner of the Electoral Commission. I've got Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Saima Mabono, next to her. And then number 3, I've got Commissioner Love, Vice Chairperson of the Electoral Commission. And then next to her, I've got Mr. Glenn Mashinini, the Chairperson of the Electoral Commission. He woke up very early in the morning to cast his ballot. Next to the Chairperson, I've got Judge Daya, Commissioner of the Electoral Commission. And then the last one is Mr. Msotu Miepia, Commissioner of the Electoral Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very early morning. I'm looking forward to hearing the update from the Chairperson, who was quite early on the road, and I know he's got a lot to share with us. Without much ado, let me call him to brief the nation. Chairperson, Mr. Glenn Mashinini.
Thank you, Program Director. To my fellow commissioners present here, and CEO, and all the members of staff, and most importantly, to all the members of the 4th Estate who are here with us. And indeed, it's a good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all our compatriots throughout the country. Indeed, as the program director has already stated, we wish to share with the nation the good news of the good start with the 2021 municipal elections. The Electoral Commission is very, very pleased to report that over 99% of the 23,148 voting stations opened on time to kickstart voting in the 2021 municipal elections. The Commission commends Africans for coming out in their large numbers so early in the morning, as they continue to come to the voting stations in their huge numbers. Many voting stations have been reported strong already waiting to vote before 7 a.m. and we continue to urge the registered voters to make their way to the voting stations. In general, voting is progressing well across the country. The logistical arrangements as well as the voter management devices are holding very well. And we are very much pleased that we've ventured in that direction. And as at 1230 hours, over 3.5 million voters have already voted. We are able to report this because of the use of the voter management devices. And therefore the Commission is satisfied with the voting process, and we hope it will continue to improve as we continue throughout the day. And as we all know, with any events of such magnitude of over 23,000 service points, there have been incidences which have been reported. In KwaZulu-Natal, 20 voting stations did not open on time because of community protests. This was in Camperdown and Dloti. The stations have now been opened with the support of our police officers. And as reported earlier, a presiding officer in eThekwini Metro was actually arrested after allegedly stuffing marked ballot boxes in their respective voting district. And this matter is now in the hands of the South African police. This incident, which did not affect the voting, is a testament to the inbuilt safeguards, check and balances in the voting processes that also include an active role for political parties and independent candidates, as well as the agents and observers in our systems. And in the Eastern Cape, 19 voting stations did not open because of community unrest. And in all incidents, communities dug trenches to deny the commission staff and the voters access to their respective voting stations. And the commission, with the assistance of the municipalities, was able to fill the trenches and anticipates that the voting stations will be open during the course of the day today. And then in Limpopo, a hailstorm delayed the opening of voting stations in areas around Giyani. While there was no load shedding, disruptions in power supply in the affected voting stations, some of them in Limpopo and Northern Cape were affected. And in Modimolle, in Limpopo, an accredited observer was asked to leave a voting station for wearing political party T-shirts. A process to withdraw the observer's accreditation was put in place with immediate effect. In Moretile, in Northwest, a member of a political party was arrested after he interrupted the voting process. And in Taung, also in Northwest, the commission has laid charges against a presiding officer after he opened a ballot box that had already been sealed. The Electoral Commission regrets the arrest of Newsroom Africa journalists at a voting station in Soweto. After intervention of the Commission, the journalist has been released and an investigation into the circumstances of that arrest will be instituted. The Commission has received reports of isolated cases where voters were stopped from entering voting stations by election staff because they were wearing political party clothing and regalia. And the Commission wishes to clarify that, firstly, wearing of such clothing by voters is not prohibited. It is only prohibited for party agents. And this information is made clear in the do's and don'ts posters provided to each voting station. And any voter who is prevented from entering a voting station due to their clothing should immediately report this to the contact center, which is the number 0800118000. I repeat, our contact center's number is 0800118000. 8,000, or if it possible and convenient, to try and locate the area manager of that respective voting stations. We wish to reiterate also the following, that the voting will continue throughout the day until 2100 hours this evening, when voting stations close. And voters who are at the voting station or in the queue at 2100 will be allowed to cast their ballot or to vote. And voters are reminded that they must vote only where they are registered, and they can check their voting station details by dialing the number *120*432 hashtag, or SMS their ID to 32810, or the contact center as already indicated, 0800118000. This will be open until the contact center until 9 p.m. this evening to assist the voters. And further, the voters must have their ID documents with them, and they are reminded that each ballot paper must be stamped on the reverse. Please make sure that you check your ballot paper and check if it has been actually stamped at the back. And further, the voters are also reminded that it is prohibited to take photograph of a marked ballot paper. This is really essential to protect the secrecy and the integrity of that vote. There are many in our society who are vulnerable, whom we need to make sure that the system does protect them. And so we appeal that people should not take photographs. Again, the Commission would also like to remind all employees, especially those who are working in sectors such as agriculture, retail, transport, mining, and so on, that today has been declared a public holiday in order to allow all South Africans the opportunity to vote. And we also appeal to the employers to adhere to that this day is a public holiday. And I wish to thank all of you for having given me the opportunity to share with you the good news of the progress of our 2021 municipal elections. Thank you, Program Director.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor for questions. You'll introduce yourself and the media house you come from, and then we'll take questions. If a question has been asked, let us not repeat it so that we take as many questions as possible. I see 3 hands, yes, if you can start from that end, and then, yeah, we'll come this way, yes.
Thank you very much, Kate. It's Zianda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa. My question to the chairperson and the IEC is, what exactly was the brief or your understanding of the incident of my colleague Ziniko Mhlaba being arrested this morning while trying to do his job? And I ask this because from the understanding of what happened, it would seem as though there's a lack of education on what the role of journalists really is. And so this begs the question on your interactions with the SAPS going into this election and their understanding of what our role is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, it's Jan Gerber from News 24. Could we get an update on the voting capturing machines. Sorry, it's Jan Gerber from News 24. We've had reports that there's been trouble with the vote capturing machines. In some cases they were offline, in some cases they had to be rebooted. What's the status of the machines? Secondly, why was the decision taken to use those machines? Thanks.
Janji Chauke from the SABC News Channel. If you can just once again give us the overall tally of, especially of the people that have been arrested for stuffing ballot boxes with marked ballots, and if you can just give us in detail how serious a crime that is. I'm asking this so that as the public broadcaster, we can also help to send that strong message out there to South Africans or to voters. Thanks.
Okay, Norman Masungwini from City Press. My question is to the chairman. What's going to happen to those voting stations that are yet to open? Are you going to extend the voting time and seeing that the number, and what is the registration in terms of numbers in those voting districts?
Let me take the last one here. Thank you.
It's Natasha Perry here from SABC News.
May I please request volume here?
Oh, sorry.
Give us a bit of volume.
It's Natasha Perry here from SABC News. Just in relation to Abutin Janji's question, are you aware of an incident that was reported in Umbumbulu, Ward 93, of a presiding officer that was allegedly found also stuffing marked ballot papers in a ballot box, and in Bumalanga, where a presiding officer was allegedly found with a ballot box at their home? Furthermore, in the morning, I got a call from the leader of the Change Party, and he has now accused the IEC of putting on the ballot paper the name of a wrong political party next to, you know, the picture of his party. So is this something
Can you
that...
just repeat that last question?
Okay, so I got a
Into-
call
yeah.
from the leader of the Change Party,
Yeah.
Siba Molumkum, and he says the IEC put next to a picture of his political party the wrong name of another political party by his party. So is this something that the IEC is, you know, aware of? Thank you.
Okay. Let me pause for that set questions. May I allow the leadership to answer? They'll be responding from their chairs because they've got mics with them. If we may allow them to do that. CEO, please lead.
Thank you. The circumstances of the arrest are sketchy at the moment, which is why the statement indicates that we want to institute a fact-finding process so that we can establish the true facts in relation to what had happened. The members of the South African Police Service who are deployed in these elections have been given a Z card, which gives them an indications of do's and don'ts, as well as the training that they require. The VMDs, the voter management devices, are functioning well overall. At the point in the morning, we had 29,000 of them connected on our area point network. We are able to determine that via an MDM solution that we have in use. We've introduced them to fortify controls, obviously, in the voting process, but also to improve the efficiency of the voting process. We used them for the first time during the registration weekend, and we are using them again on this occasion. And we are also using them to monitor the progress in the voting process. So we are very happy with how they are functioning. There may be isolated incidents here and there where there may be a technical glitch, but on the whole, they are holding well and giving us good functionality at the voting stations. Thanks. The issue of ballot paper stuffing is the issue that we reported about in Umbumbulu, which is Ward 93 in the municipality of eThekwini. The police have arrested the presiding officer, and a police investigation is underway. As soon as the facts are established, the person will be presented before the prosecution authority so that a criminal charge can be properly prosecuted. Yes, we are aware about the issue with a change. We are in discussion with the party, and we will report on progress in relation to that issue in our subsequent engagement. I'm not sure if
Interrupted voting stations, CEO.
I think you were saying?
Interrupt voting stations that did not open.
What about them?
To say what would happen, what was going to, what is the
Oh, okay. No, thanks. The voting stations that did not open on time, most of them have now since opened. In Camberdown, for instance, those 8 stations are functional, and before an hour before the media conference, all but 3 voting stations had been opened in the Eastern Cape. Now, obviously, people who are at the voting station at 9 will be assisted. And if there are any special measures beyond that which are required, the Commission will make that call later in the day.
Thank you, CEO. I'm going to take the last round of questions. We've got a bit of work on the ground. I've got 2 questions this side, 3. If I may request my colleagues to assist me.
Thank you, Mcebisi Sindletyana. Glenn said by what, 12:30 today, 3 point something, 3.4 perhaps, have already voted. 3.5 have already voted. Comparatively speaking, with 2016 elections, how many had voted by this time? Just to get a sense.
My name is Nani Mukati from Independent Media. This is just for clarity. Mr. Sasa Mababulo mentioned earlier that they had connected up to 29,000 of the VDAs. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the VMD machines. Just for clarity purposes, how many were procured initially? Thanks.
Thanks. It's Zianda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa again. I'm not sure if the Commission is aware of a woman who's collapsed and died at one of your voting stations. It's in Everton at the Faith Mission Church. So my question is in relation to the availability of just health management services at your voting stations. What is the plan that's been put in place in that regard?
Looks like we've covered second and fourth. You've got it. Thank you, Sepo.
Good afternoon, Lukona Mnguni, Power 98.7. I just wonder, how is it possible that some of your voting stations ran out of ballot papers at 10 a.m., at 11 a.m., in places like Mnandi, Centurion, in some areas, in Johannesburg, Marlborough Gardens Combined School was also flagged. How is this possible? Don't you think it's going to actually contribute in voter turnout, one? And secondly, will you be holding people accountable for that?
Looks like we covered with all the questions. Okay, Bonolo, let's take your questions from online, and then we'll be allowing the CEO to answer, and then we'll be wrapping up the press briefing.
Okay.
The CEO had already touched on our first question, but this one comes from Eric Naki, and he says, Change Party claims its name does not appear on the PR ballot paper in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, but only its logo appears. Instead, the name of another party is appearing right next to his logo. How far are you with resolving this crisis?
Okay.
The next one comes from Tando Maiko at Business Day, and the question is, some voting districts have envelopes and some don't, it seems. Is there a standing order on this issue? Is it an issue? Sandisiwe Shoba from the Daily Maverick says there are allegedly problems with the VMDs at some stations in the country, which is delaying voting. Please comment on whether this is the case. And then the second last one is from Marvin Adams, who asks, is the IEC aware of any irregularities in Ward 17 and 18 with regards to the Patriotic Alliance giving voters money if they voted for them? With the last question then, it is, okay, yes. Oh yes, I've covered it. This is Marvin Adams, who's then asking about Ward 17 and 18.
So all your questions are covered, Punono?
All covered, thank you.
Thank you very much. CEO, we've got questions from the floor and additional ones from our online platforms.
In relation to the comparison with 2016, we have no base against which to compare, because in 2016 we didn't have the voter management device, so we couldn't tell you corresponding figures, unfortunately. How many VMDs were procured? 40,000. Some of them obviously are a buffer, so that in case we have breakdowns, we can be able to replace. We've not heard of that report of a person who has died. In terms of the arrangements, we are working with the emergency services of the respective municipalities. And if we have an incident such as those, they are able to offer the necessary counseling and other related things. But we don't have the capacity to station those social services at 23,000 points. The ballot paper running out, it shouldn't run out because we've printed 100%. So if a station had 300 people registered, that voting station would have to be provided 300 ballot papers. It's people in the distribution make decisions such as giving half and not everything, which is something that we had specifically spoken about with colleagues. Indeed, we are able to take corrective action against staff who commit acts of negligence of that nature, because it's nothing else more than negligence. The envelopes are not required for normal voting today, except where there are disputes which are related to persons who still don't have an address on the voters' roll. So those people, if there's an objection after they had given an address, those ballots would have to be put in the double envelopes and be placed on one side. The commission will have to decide on them. But generally today, there's no need for use of double envelopes. The issue of Ward 17 and 19 in, I don't know which municipality that is though, regarding allegations against the Patriotic Front, Patriotic Alliance. It has not come to our attention. We will look at that specifically as we leave you here. Yes, our sense of the VMD is that it is functioning well and holding up well. as I indicated earlier, there are 29,000 of them which are in use as we speak. And a substantial majority of them are holding well. There's been very few, no more than 10 to be precise, which have given technical glitches. But otherwise, 29,000 of them are connected and functioning well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, CEO. Looks like we've covered all the questions that were raised. If there are any other questions, we've got our communication platforms, the spokesperson inbox, the Bonolo, why am I seeing your hand going up? I'm wrapping up. Commissioners and executives need to assist our officials on the ground. That's why on an election day, we don't spend time here. We spend time on the ground. Let me take the one more question, and then we're closing.
Sure.
Please bear with us.
No problem. Really, these are just echoing sentiments, but we're just making sure everyone's covered, that the CEO has addressed. Jody Jacobs from ENCA is also raising a flag around ballot papers shortage in Blackheath and Cape Town. And then we have the last one, which is Sinesipo from Record newspaper. She says, for the stations that got off to a slow start because of the delays, will the closing time be extended? In the north of Pretoria and Laerskool, Magalieskreen voting station there has issues with ballot papers running out. What is the solution to this problem? Thank you.
CEO?
Okay, I think there was a question about how serious is the offense of a person stuffing a ballot paper. It is indeed a serious offense because you are actually stealing an election and subverting the will of the electorate. We have had a previous case in the province of KZN about 5 years ago in Ulundi. The person was successfully prosecuted and upon conviction was sentenced to 5 years. So this is a serious offense and our courts are treating it as such. The issue of ballot papers, as I indicated, we've printed at 100% at the voting station level. So there shouldn't be really shortages. There may be persons in the logistical chain who have made calls around distribution which have led to this situation. So we'll have to correct that, and we are dealing with this as they get reported. For the voting stations that got to a slow start or that were delayed in opening, the Commission will make an assessment when those stations close, assess how many people there are there, and if there's a necessity to make any other calls that may be necessary. But that call will be made later at that point. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, let me thank you very much. Let's pause as we assist South Africans throughout the country in more than 23,000 voting stations to vote. Let's catch up later on. Thank you very much.
And there we come out of the IEC briefing. Of course, the IEC...